Welcome back to Castle East, one of many castles in the BlueWatch Citadel Kingdom. We will continue to use this castle to demonstrate the principles of cybersecurity. In this episode, we will discuss data states and risk management options. Let's begin with data at rest. We have the king at rest, representing data at rest, and this is typically the most secure data state, protected by multiple layers of defense. These include strong encryption, access controls, and the castle's many security features like guards, locked chambers, and perimeter walls. Our metaphor for defense in depth. But while the king rests securely now, risks never fully disappear. We must still plan for potential threats, such as insiders who already have access or attackers who may find a hidden path in. That's where risk management comes in, evaluating potential threats and deciding on the best risk response strategy. We can avoid the risk by eliminating unnecessary storage of sensitive data in the digital world. We can transfer the risk through insurance or third-party services. We can mitigate the risk with stronger encryption or tighter access controls, or we can accept the risk when the cost of protection outweighs the threat. In the next slide, we'll see what happens when the king, our data, must move. Now, in our last slide, the king, representing data at rest, was safe and secure in his chamber, protected by walls, guards, and layered defenses. But now the king rises. Decisions must be made, information must be accessed, processed, and shared. We are now in the war room, where strategy is crafted, orders are given, and action takes place. This brings us to the next state of data in use. Now, the king is awake and making decisions. He is data in use. This is the moment when data is actively being processed, not just stored securely or transmitted carefully, but opened, manipulated, calculated, or displayed. Data in use is like the king holding court. Advisors come and go. In the digital world, this is like users accessing data. Scrolls are unrolled. This is like files being opened in the digital world. And decisions are made and orders are written. This is like data being processed in memory or by the CPU. This is the most vulnerable of all states. Why? Because the protections we had while the king was at rest, like encryption, may now be temporarily lifted to allow for reading, writing, and editing. The king is out in the open, even if still inside the castle. In cybersecurity terms, this is when data is decrypted in memory, opened in a program, or being used by a system process. If a threat actor were to strike now via a malicious insider, a screen scraper, or a compromised application, they might see exactly what the king is doing. So here again, risk management becomes critical. Since we cannot avoid using data, we must mitigate the risks associated with its use. Strategies include implementing strict access controls. For example, only trusted advisors are allowed in the room. Or using application sandboxing and secure enclaves. This is like shielding the king's conversations from eavesdropping. Or we can also use a number of other measures. Monitoring system behavior in real time, watching for suspicious movements inside the castle. This is where we do threat hunting or threat assessments. If the risk is too great, perhaps the topic is too sensitive, we might delay action until better protections are in place, or transfer responsibility to a more secure system or team. So whether the king is resting or it's in use, data is something that we always have to keep in mind. For example, cybersecurity is about knowing the risks of each state and choosing the right defense strategy for each moment. In our next slide, the king will leave the walls of the castle entirely. That's right, data in transit. And the road ahead is dangerous. We'll see what happens when the king, our data, must move, and you'll see the risks change when the king leaves the castle walls. So now we have the king's procession. We saw the king at rest in his chamber. That was data at rest. We saw the king in the war room. This is data in use. Now the king must leave the safety of the inner walls. The trumpets sound, the gates rise, the king is on the move. Now, as the king moves from Castle East to Castle West, traveling to another stronghold to deliver critical orders, this is our final state, data in transit, when information is being transmitted across the network from one system to another. While the king travels the kingdom roads, he is vulnerable. Bandits, spies, and rogue messengers lurk in the shadows. just as attackers and eavesdroppers watch network traffic for sensitive data. Sometimes we call that adversaries in the middle. In cybersecurity, this is the moment when a file is sent over email, a login credential moves across the internet, a transaction is being processed between two systems. Just like a royal procession, security measures must travel with the data to guard against interception, alteration, or impersonation. So how do we protect data in transit in the digital world? Well, we can encrypt communications like giving the king an armored carriage. Protocols like HTTPS, TLS, and VPNs wrap the message so even if intercepted, it cannot be read. We can also use authentication and digital certificates, the royal seals, so that when you receive a message, the receiving end can verify that the message truly came from a true king. This gives us authenticity and integrity. We can also limit exposure by allowing essential data to travel. Just as the king doesn't travel entirely with his whole court on every journey, we can only send what we really need to send, data minimization. So, risk management also has to be considered. We have to ask ourselves, can we avoid the risk? Maybe. The journey isn't needed. We can keep the data local. Can we transfer the risk? Use a secure delivery service or a trusted cloud provider. Can we mitigate the risk? Use stronger encryption, routing through secure tunnels, or limiting access? Or do we must accept the risk, ensuring we've done all that we can? So, we've made it to Castle West, and the King's Journey teaches us a valuable truth. Data is never safe because it just exists. Its safety depends on its state, at rest, in use, or in transit. Every state requires its own strategy and shields. Here, at Castle East, we train not to just build walls, but to understand the kingdom, anticipate threats, and protect the crown jewels, our data at every turn. Until next time, long live the kingdom, long live cybersecurity. And if you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more. See you at the next lesson.